What would you do if a single moment of cruelty exposed the truth about everyone in the room? In the heart of a bustling city diner, where the clatter of plates and the hum of conversation never ceased, Clara Thompson, a 60-year-old waitress with hands toughened by decades of service, moved with quiet grace. Her graying hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her eyes held a warmth that had seen too much to judge but enough to understand. For 35 years, she'd worked at Rosie's Diner, a place where truckers, families, and the occasional politician crossed paths. She was the kind of person who remembered your order before you spoke, who slipped an extra biscuit to a hungry kid without a word. But tonight, her world would tilt, and a single act of malice would unravel secrets that had been buried for years. It was a Friday evening, the diner packed with the usual mix of regulars and strangers. Clara weaved through the crowd, balancing plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes, her apron stained but her smile steady. At table 12, a group of well-dressed young women laughed loudly, their designer bags cluttering the booth. Among them was Vanessa Klein, a rising fashion model whose face graced billboards across the city. Her sharp cheekbones and icy blue eyes drew attention, but her demeanor was colder still. Clara approached with a pitcher of water, refilling glasses with the same care she gave every task. "Can you hurry up?" Vanessa snapped, barely glancing at Clara. Her friends giggled, and Clara nodded, unfazed. She'd heard worse. But as she turned to leave, Vanessa's hand shot out, grabbing the pitcher from Clara's grip. In one fluid motion, she tipped it forward, dousing Clara's uniform. Water soaked her from chest to knees, dripping onto the checkered floor. The diner fell silent, forks pausing midair as Vanessa leaned back with a smirk. "Oops," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Maybe now you'll move faster, Grandma." Clara stood frozen, water pooling at her feet. Her face burned, not from shame, but from a quiet rage she hadn't felt in years. The diners watched, some whispering, others averting their eyes. She could feel the weight of their stares, the judgment, the pity. But before she could speak, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Vanessa Klein, you ought to be ashamed." The words came from a corner booth, where a man in a crisp suit stood, his presence commanding the room. It was Senator Daniel Hargrove, a regular at Rosie's, known for his quiet meals and generous tips. His face was stern, his gray eyes locked on Vanessa. The model's smirk faltered, and the room held its breath. Clara wiped a droplet from her cheek, her heart pounding. She'd served Senator Hargrove for years, always exchanging polite small talk, but she'd never seen him like this, his voice steady, but laced with something deeper, something personal. He stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking on the floor. "You think you're untouchable because your face is on a magazine?" he said, his tone low but piercing. "Let me tell you something about the woman you just humiliated." The diner was a tomb, every ear straining. Vanessa shifted uncomfortably, her friends suddenly engrossed in their phones. Clara's hands trembled, but she stood tall, unsure where this was going but feeling the weight of the moment. Senator Hargrove turned to her, his expression softening. "Clara Thompson isn't just a waitress. She's a mother, a survivor, and the reason I'm standing here today." The twist came like a gust of wind, shifting the air in the room. Clara's breath caught. She'd never spoken of her past, not to anyone at Rosie's. "How'd he know?" Hargrove continued, his voice steady but thick with emotion. 25 years ago, Clara worked the night shift at a diner not unlike this one. I was a broke law student, drowning in debt, sitting in a booth at 2 a.m. with no hope left. I'd lost my brother to addiction, my parents to grief. I was ready to give upon everything. He paused, his eyes meeting Clara's. She remembered that night, though she'd never known his name back then. a young man, barely 20, staring into his coffee like it held all his failures. She'd sat with him, listened, offered a slice of pie on the house. It was just another night to her, another soul to comfort. But to him, it was everything. "You didn't just serve me coffee," Hargrove said, his voice breaking. "You told me I was enough. You gave me a reason to keep going. Because of you, I finished law school. Because of you, I'm here." He turned back to Vanessa, his gaze hardening. "And you dare treat her like she's nothing?" The room was electric, every face a mix of shock and awe. Vanessa's confidence crumbled, her eyes darting for an escape. But then came another surprisingly soft voice from the back of the diner. "She's not the only one you save, Clara." It was Rosie herself, the diner's owner, stepping out from behind the counter. At 78, she rarely worked the floor anymore, but her presence was a force. Her white hair glowed under the fluorescent lights, and her eyes were wet with tears. Rosie walked to Clara's side, her frail hand gripping Clara's arm. "You never told anyone, did you?" she said softly. "About the nights you stayed late to help me balance the books when I was too proud to admit I was failing. About the time you paid for a customer's meal out of your own pocket because you knew he was homeless. You've carried this place and all of us for years." Clara's throat tightened. She'd never seen her actions as anything special. To her, it was just doing what needed to be done. But now, standing in a soaked uniform, she felt the weight of her life's quiet impact. The diners began to murmur, some clapping softly, others wiping their eyes. Vanessa's friends slipped out of the booth, leaving her alone. The model's face was pale, her bravado gone. Senator Hargrove wasn't finished. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a crisp $100 bill, placing it on Clara's tray. "This isn't charity," he said. "It's gratitude, and I know I'm not the only one here who owes you." He turned to the room, his voice rising. "Anyone else want to show Clara what she means to this place?" One by one, diners stood. A trucker dropped a 20. A single mom added a 10. A young couple, barely able to afford their meal, placed a crumpled 5. Soon, Clara's tray was overflowing, not just with money but with notes, smiles, and whispered thanks. Vanessa sat frozen, her eyes on the floor, as the room transformed into a testament to Clara's unspoken legacy. Clara's vision blurred with tears. She'd spent her life believing she was invisible, just a pair of hands serving coffee and kindness. But tonight, she saw herself through their Aisa beacon, a lifeline, a woman who'd changed lives without ever knowing it. She looked at Vanessa, expecting anger, but found something else. The model's head was bowed, her hands clasped tightly. For the first time, Vanessa looked small, human, caught in the wake of her own cruelty. As the crowd dispersed, Senator Hargrove approached Clara. "I never got to thank you properly," he said. "I hope tonight helped." Clara smiled, her voice steady despite the tears. "You didn't need to do all this, Senator, but I'm grateful." Rosie squeezed her hand. "Your family, Clara. Always have been." The diner slowly returned to its rhythm, but the air was different, warmer, softer. Vanessa slipped out quietly, her face unreadable. Clara didn't know if the model would change, but she hoped she'd at least think twice before lashing out again. As Clara mopped up the water from the floor, she felt lighter, not because of the money or the praise, but because she finally understood her worth. In a world that often overlooked people like her, she made a difference one plate, one smile, one moment at a time. And that, she realized, was a life well lived.